I used to think the Pomodoro Technique was the holy grail of studying. All of my favorite study YouTubers seemed to use it, and it did everything I needed. It helped me to study for longer periods of time, and it encouraged me to take breaks. In fact, in my last year of high school, I logged almost 700 hours using the Pomodoro Technique. But that being said, I'm now in my third year of medical school, and I don't use the Pomodoro Technique anymore. And what I use instead is probably something you've never heard of before. The first issue I ran into with the Pomodoro Technique was that it was a mediator of disruption. Most Pomodoro timers are set for either 25 or 50 minutes, but each of these had their own issues. For me, I found that 25 minutes was just not long enough for me to get deeply absorbed into the content I was learning. Often I would find myself just getting into that nice focused state. Often I would find that I was just getting into the content and understanding it when my Pomodoro alarm would go off and I would have to take a break. On the other hand, 50 minutes was usually too long, and I found that I was losing focus around the 30 to 40 minute mark, and the last 10 minutes of my Pomodoro session were not spent that productive. What I realized was that the Pomodoro Technique was encouraging me to sit at my desk studying, but not really focusing. Whenever I was getting into that nice deep focus state called the flow state, I realized that the Pomodoro Technique was distracting me from this. This flow state is actually what's important, and it's in this state that your mind is able to work most efficiently, and it's most able to remember and retain the content that you're learning. The fact that the length of the Pomodoro Technique or the breaks were actually disrupting this flow state was a massive issue for me. On the note of breaks, the break in the Pomodoro Technique was either 5 minutes for a 25-minute timer or 10 minutes for a 50-minute timer, and I found that this was never properly used for me to recover my energy. I was never actually told what I was supposed to do in those Pomodoro breaks, and this meant that I'd end up doing something that made me more tired and distracted, like scrolling on my phone. These flaws in the Pomodoro Technique were what actually helped me find the solutions, which starts with providing urgency. Although the Pomodoro Technique does provide urgency through the use of a timer, this is usually limited to the timer that you set. And furthermore, there's nothing really stopping you from not focusing during a timer session. And I know I've definitely been caught lacking during a Pomodoro session before. On this point, I found that incentive and accountability are incredibly important tools that we can leverage to make ourselves more productive. A practical way to apply this is to tell your parents that I will finish this essay in the next hour, and if I don't, I will give you my phone for the rest of the day. It might be scary, but I guarantee you that if you make the deal with someone who you know will follow through with the threat, like your parents or an older sibling, then I guarantee that you will get that essay done. There are a few extra benefits of this that are really important to understand. Firstly, it leverages Parkinson's law, which states that work expands to fill the time allocated to it. If you were to give two people the same task and you gave one person 1 day and you gave another person 2 weeks, it's actually likely that both of them would finish the task on time, but would produce the same quality of work. You've probably experienced this yourself in that you probably always do your assignments in the day before or the week before, even though you might have months to do it beforehand. The trick is that because you're producing the same quality of work, you might as well reduce the time frame that you have to do things as much as possible, and you can do that by providing a punishment for not completing the thing. This leads us on to the second point, which is improving your focus. I found that I used to get distracted really easily during my study sessions, and the way that I fixed this was by addressing it at the root. Neuroscientists have found that the brain is wired to be distracted, so it's impossible to not be distracted. Just acknowledge that it is going to happen, and all you can do is remove the possible distractions from your workspace and then bring yourself back to your work once you do get distracted. To help with this, a practical tip that you can apply is to use apps like Opal or OneSec that can block off certain apps on your phone whenever you open them. On your web browser, you can also get certain web extensions that stop you from opening certain websites while you're studying. The technique that wraps all of this together is called the flomador. I learned this technique from Justin Song and Archer Newton, and the way it works is that instead of setting a timer that counts down, you set a timer that counts up. While you're studying, the time will count up, and then when you feel your focus slipping, you want to stop the timer at that point and then divide the number by 3 to get the duration of your break. When you're utilizing the system, it means that your breaks are tailored to the amount of time that you're spending studying, and it also means that all of the time that you're spent studying is hopefully spent in the flow state. When you get better and better at using this technique, it means that you can actually study for longer and longer, and then you can stop dividing by 3 and you can divide by 4 or 5 instead to have slightly shorter breaks. What happens during your breaks is also really important so that you can maintain the flow state between between when you stop a timer and then start the next one. Scrolling on your phone or getting completely distracted are really bad things to do during your break because firstly, it disrupts your flow state completely, and it also doesn't really help you regain any energy. You should already have your phone off, but during your break you shouldn't turn it on, and instead you should do something like a mundane task like clearing your room, ironing some clothes, washing the dishes, and while you're doing that, think about what it is you were studying. One type of break that I really enjoy taking is that if I study for 45 minutes, I'll go outside for a 10 to 15 minute walk, and while I'm walking, I'll think about what it is I was studying and try and process that information a little bit more. In moments where I finish studying and I start to feel really tired, like I can't keep going on anymore, then I will actually do some mindful meditation during my period of my break. I find that once I finish this, I actually feel almost completely rejuvenated and I feel so much more enthusiastic to study. Applying these tips will definitely allow you to be more focused, and with that focus, you should definitely check out this video on how I get better at studying without even touching a book.